Welcome to The Root Live, Bring It to the Table, sponsored by Prudential. I'm your host, Harriet Cole, and today's topic is knowing how to take care of your aging parents and yourself. And we know if we're blessed enough to have our parents as they grow old, we know we want to do everything we can for them. Often that puts us in debt like crazy, but also it can be an expense on our own beings and our pocketbook. So we're going to talk about that today with someone who has spent a lot of time researching this. He's written a book about it. His name is Derek McDaniel. He's an elder care expert, and he's written this book. It's called Eldercare, The Essential Guide to Caring for Your Loved One and Yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, I'm so glad that you did this. There's so many people that I know right now who are going through the challenge of, again, if they're blessed to have one or both of their parents, often their parents are frail, sometimes having health challenges, often not having the kind of financial support needed in order to take care of themselves. And you know, especially in the Black community, a lot of us do not think we should put our parents in a retirement home. You're going to take care of mommy and daddy. But what if you can't do that? So you've been researching this for a long time. I'm curious to know, for starters, why this became such an important topic for you.
Well, for me, it became important because my grandmother was a care recipient, and I became her caregiver. In my case, I was working in financial services and teaching at NYU. And my mother was slated to be my grandmother's primary caregiver. And unfortunately, she passed away unexpectedly, my mom. And so with her passing, I became my grandmother's primary caregiver.
And how old were you at this point?
I was in my early 30s.
Wow. So yes. You're beginning your life in a way.
Yes.
And then there was a big shift because you have to take care of your grandmother. Did you stop going to school? What did you do to change your life to accommodate your grandmother?
Actually, I was already working, and no, I was teaching at NYU. So in terms of what shifted, I just started working a lot more hours in terms of taking care of her. The average caregiver in America right now spends 20.3 hours per week caring for an elderly loved one. So that's almost another job in and of itself.
Okay, so you say you worked more hours.
Yes.
Were you working more hours on your job to make more money and then working more hours at home to take care of your grandmother? What were these extra hours going for?
Actually, a little bit of both, but mostly more hours taking care of my grandmother.
Okay.
So running to the store for her, picking up medicines for her, accompanying her on doctor's visits, just spending time with her. So it almost became another job in and of itself.
And this job, by the way, I think people will be surprised to know that a whole lot of people are having this job because America is aging.
Yes.
You know, we often talk about the sexiness of young folks, but there are a whole lot of old folks in our country now. What can you tell me about these statistics?
Okay, number one, the baby boomer generation came online in 2011.
Came online.
They started hitting 65.
Okay.
So in 2011, and right now we have on average 10,000 people per day getting to the age of 65.
Wow.
Now you couple that with, given that people who hit 65 are likely to live to 85,
right.
That's a lot of people, and the baby boomer generation is roughly 75 million people.
75 million people right now and growing by 10,000 every day.
Essentially.
And so are most of these people properly insured? Or, I mean,
No.
how are they taking care of themselves? Because many of them at 65 or so are still independent.
Yes, very well. Most people are 65 nowadays due to better nutrition, better exercise regimens, better eating habits, so on and so forth. At 65, people are, by and large, they're still in good shape.
Right.
But what tends to happen, though, is as they age, they will need more and more care. And so folks who are potential caregivers really need to start making those preparations right now so that once that person does need care, it doesn't hit them like a splash of cold water in the face.
Now, but what's interesting is, you talk about the children who are grown probably at this point saying, Mom and Dad, you're doing well now, But if you live for a long time, what are we going to do? So how do you even talk to your parents about getting long-term care insurance, especially if you want them to help pay for it? You know, or even broaching the subject when they still feel young and vital at this point.
Well, the very first thing that you have to do is make sure that you approach them and express that you love and care about them, first and foremost. Second, that you're not trying to take away their independence. Third, you want to make sure that you help them maintain their dignity as this process unfolds. So as long as you start from that perspective and continue down that path that way, you're usually in pretty good stead.
Okay, so can you talk to me about the insurance, this long-term care insurance that is so popular and helpful now
very much
for people, and when is the right time to buy that?
Well, we suggest to people that they start looking at long-term care insurance in their mid to late 50s, because as with any type of insurance, and think about it in terms of, let's say, life insurance, the younger you buy it, the less you're going to pay.
Right.
So that's really when we tell people to start looking
And
at
it's something that that adult children can buy for their parents as well, correct?
Yes, correct.
And so in the midst of this, we're trying to get the parents ready with whatever kind of insurance we can get them, sometimes figuring out, should you live in your same house or move someplace else?
Right.
If there are health concerns, managing those health concerns and working, and often, like sandwich generation, taking care of your kids too. Too often, Derek, I hear people in this situation who end up sick. You
Yes.
know, who they themselves, their parents are ill, but they are the ones who have the heart attack or go on disability because of the stress. So how can you take care of yourself if you are in this position of trying to do right by your parents and you feel overwhelmed?
Well, the very first thing is, and that's the reason I titled the book the way that I did, the essential guide to caring for your loved one and yourself, because it is very important. So the very first thing is making sure that you understand that you do need to take care of yourself. Number two, make sure that you don't feel guilty about it. And when I speak to people and I do lectures and so on and so forth, what I explain to people is just like when you get on an airplane and they're doing their safety checks at the beginning of the flight, and they say, well, if the mask comes down, put it on yourself first so that you can then take care of someone else. Well, it's exactly the same with Eldercare, because you can't take care of someone else just if you passed out.
But don't you kind of feel like sometimes you're shaking them, saying, come on, you have to exercise, you have to eat right. Even if you're stressed, you have to go to sleep at a good time. And how do you do all of that when you are just spent?
You recognize the importance of it. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Because
And that's why you're waving the flag.
got to do it early. You absolutely have to, because Eldercare is a beautiful thing. It comes with its trials and tribulations and its financial challenges without question. But I've never known a person looking at it retrospectively to say that they regretted that they did it. You get to learn and know this person that you're caring for in new and different ways. A lot of women and 66% of caregivers are women.
Sure.
A lot of women look back and say that this was one of the greatest periods of their lives, because they got a chance to do that, and you grow as a person. So there's a lot of good that comes out of this.
Hey, I hope you're listening. If you have an elderly parent or a relative and you know that they need help, figure out how to help them. This book, Eldercare, it is an essential guide, and I'm so glad that you wrote it. Thank you so much, Derek McDaniel,
Well, thank you.
for writing Eldercare. Okay, so we want to hear from you. How are you taking care of yourself if you're in the position of taking care of your elderly parents or relatives? So you hear me? What are you doing for you? Because that's what we really need to know, how we can support each other by helping each other. So please join the conversation. You can write to us on Facebook at The Root or on Twitter at The Root. Thank you so much for being with us today. You've been watching The Root Live, Bring It to the Table, sponsored by Prudential. I'm your host, Harriet Cole. Have a great day and make it count.